Have you ever wondered how many brilliant inventions have been buried by history? Not because they didn't work, but because they worked too well. The 19th century was an era of explosive innovation. Steam, electricity, early computers, even solar power, all began there. But some of the most promising technologies quietly disappeared. And here's the twist. Many of them could have made oil and coal irrelevant. Some even threatened entire empires built on fossil fuels. Coincidence? Or systematic suppression? In this video, we're diving into 10 lost or destroyed technologies from the 19th century that were decades, even centuries, ahead of their time. Some vanished because the world wasn't ready. Others, because powerful people weren't willing to let go of control. Get ready. This journey might just change the way you see history forever. Before gasoline cars took over the world, the roads of America and parts of Europe were ruled by electric vehicles. Yes, over 100 years ago, electric cars were more popular than gasoline ones. By 1900, nearly 40% of all cars in the U.S. were electric. They were quiet, clean, and didn't require hand cranking like gas cars. So why did they disappear? The answer may lie in the rise of oil monopolies. As companies like Standard Oil gained massive power, the idea of a clean, quiet, home-charged vehicle became a threat. Enter the internal combustion engine, aggressively promoted, mass-produced, and backed by billionaires with everything to lose if oil became obsolete. And just like that, electric cars were gone. Not because they failed, but because they didn't fit into the fossil fuel empire being built. A century later, we're only now trying to bring them back. Coincidence? Or a strategy to keep us dependent? Before we continue, if this made you raise an eyebrow or question what else we've been lied to about, hit that like button. And in the comments tell us, what hidden technology or forgotten history do you want us to explore next? In the mid-1800s, engineers in London, Paris, and New York were experimenting with something revolutionary: pneumatic trains. These weren't powered by steam or coal, but by air pressure. A vacuum created inside a tube would pull a carriage forward at surprising speeds, silently, cleanly, and without any fuel. The idea worked. Tests were successful. In London, passengers even rode on atmospheric railways for a time. But then, the projects were cancelled. The official explanation? High maintenance costs, technical challenges, sealing problems. But many believe that's only part of the story. Pneumatic transport was a threat to the growing rail empires powered by coal and later oil. Why allow a system that doesn't burn fuel when billions could be made selling it? The technology was shelved and mocked. Today, we use similar vacuum principles in high-tech systems like Hyperloop. But the original idea? Buried and forgotten. Long before solar panels were mainstream, a French inventor named Auguste Mouchot built working solar-powered engines in the 1860s. His machines converted sunlight into steam power, and they worked. One of them even powered a printing press in Paris. By the 1870s, Mouchot brought his technology to North Africa, where the intense sun made his system ideal for pumping water and producing energy. He believed fossil fuels were finite, and that the sun would one day power civilization. He was right, but too early. At the height of his success, funding vanished. Why? Because coal was cheap, and governments saw no reason to invest in free energy when they could tax and control fossil fuels. Mouchot's work was buried, his vision forgotten. 100 years later, solar energy returned, slowly. But we could have had it a century earlier, if not for the deep grip of the fossil fuel economy. By the early 20th century, many American cities had efficient, clean electric streetcars and even early electric buses. They were quiet, reliable, and didn't pollute. Cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York had vast networks of trolleys that ran like clockwork, far better than the traffic-choked chaos we see today. So, what happened? In the 1930s, a group of powerful corporations, including General Motors, Standard Oil, and Firestone, formed a secretive alliance. They began buying up streetcar systems across the country and tearing them out. In their place, diesel buses, gasoline engines, rubber tires. The result? Millions became dependent on personal cars, highways, and, you guessed it, oil. This is not a theory. It's a documented conspiracy, known as the National City Line scandal. And the penalty? A mere slap on the wrist, a fine of just $1. In 1843, decades before the telephone, a Scottish inventor named Alexander Bain patented a device that could send images over long distances. It was called the telegraph facsimile, and it used synchronized pendulums and chemical paper to reproduce handwritten text or drawings via telegraph wires. Think about that. A fax machine. In the 1840s. It worked. It was tested. It was real. But the technology never took off. Why? Some blamed cost or complexity, but others pointed to a darker possibility. Bain's invention allowed people to bypass centralized control of printed information. Imagine a world where anyone could send hand-drawn or written messages instantly across countries, without government or corporate gatekeepers. In a world built on slow, controlled communication, instant image sharing was a threat, and so it disappeared. Not because it was useless, but because it was too powerful too early. By the late 19th century, cities like Paris, Vienna, London, and New York had built something astonishing. Pneumatic mail systems, vast underground networks of pressurized tubes that shot capsules filled with documents, messages, even money, across entire cities. Using nothing but compressed air and vacuum pressure, these systems could deliver a message in minutes, without gasoline, horses, or electricity. In many cases, they were faster and more reliable than early phones. And yet, the systems were slowly shut down. Officially, the telephone and email made them obsolete. But think about it. Pneumatic mail didn't require roads, wires, or fuel. It was independent. And you couldn't charge people per mile or megabyte. It was too efficient and too hard to control. So it was dismantled, not because it failed, but because it couldn't be monetized the way modern communication can. In the 1830s, long before the digital age, British mathematician Charles Babbage designed something extraordinary. The analytical engine, a mechanical computer with memory, processing, and even the ability to run programs. It could perform complex calculations automatically. His collaborator, Ada Lovelace, even wrote what we now call the first computer algorithm. Let that sink in. A fully programmable computer, in the early 1800s. But it was never built. Why? The British government funded part of the project but pulled support, claiming it was too costly and hard to understand. In reality, it may have threatened the monopoly of manual data control, banks, governments, and corporations that relied on human calculators and bookkeeping. Babbage died without seeing his machine completed. And the world waited over 100 years before computers were invented again. Was it forgotten by accident? Or was it shelved because powerful systems weren't ready to lose control? At the dawn of the 20th century, airships, especially the German Zeppelins, were seen as the future of aviation. They could carry heavy loads, fly long distances, and didn't require runways. Some could cross the Atlantic in comfort, offering luxury air travel long before passenger planes became common. But everything changed in 1937 with the infamous Hindenburg disaster. The footage of the giant airship bursting into flames shocked the world. Public confidence vanished overnight. airships were declared unsafe, obsolete, and quickly disappeared. But here's the strange part. The Hindenburg was originally designed to use helium, a safe gas. But due to political restrictions, it was forced to use hydrogen, which was extremely flammable. And to this day, some believe sabotage may have played a role in the explosion. Why destroy such a promising technology? Because airships didn't rely on aviation fuel. They posed a threat to the emerging airline industry and the oil giants backing it. With one disaster and a flood of media panic, the airship age was erased. Not by failure, but by fear and profit.